When Wukong was introduced to the arena, they heralded him as the rebellious god, the one that followed no one. He followed suit by showing up to the arena late. He missed his introduction. Yara was calling out, she was confused why he wasn't out there, and even his own friends were worried, and they were saying, come on, hurry up. What are you doing, big bro? Wukong showed up in a very nonchalant manner saying, you're loud. We can keep those guys waiting, it doesn't matter. I'm only doing this to pass some time. I have no obligation to play along with their games. We also found out that he was, of course, the favorite to win this tournament. His power is acknowledged by all, including the likes of Zeus. But when I see them call him the rebellious god, the free-spirited man, all that comes to mind is Buddha. Especially when you look at Zeus's dialogue in chapter 1. And that's going to be the basis for this video. First things first, however, if you like the content you see here, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel so we get pushed out to even more people to grow the Record of Ragnarok community we have here and push the videos out to new audiences that can create more interest and support for the series as a whole. Also, if you missed any of the breakdowns for the chapters last month, they are on the channel as we speak, especially if you're confused as to Wukong being part of Record of Ragnarok. We covered his introduction and everything that's transpired in all the full details in the chapter breakdown, so check those out if you missed them. When Zeus announced the Ragnarok tournament, a lot of the gods in the crowd were upset that they were left off, but Wukong was calm, cool, and collected and noticed the fact that there were only 12 gods on that roster. That inevitably leads us to the spinoff we have today, as Zeus announced a tournament called the Apocalypse to decide that 13th name that will enter the Record of Ragnarok tournament from the main series. Meaning that all the information we get from this series, Apocalypse of the Gods, predates the main series of Record of Ragnarok. It is effectively a prequel that all leads us to the big time tournament. Now, of course, we know that the 13th god that will be added to that roster is, of course, Zeus, because his name was omitted from the list. But at the time, there was only 12. Ragnarok is 13v13. Wukong keenly noticed this amidst the chaos and calmed down everybody in the crowd effectively. Zeus recognized this and said, to think that the problem child of the past, Wukong, would tell everyone to calm down. You sure mellowed out. All that rang through my mind reading this dialogue was Buddha. We get a little bit more insight to what that problem child moniker came from, as we found out that long ago, even with 100,000 plus of the heavenly host all pursuing him, they were never able to take his freedom. Countless gods, including the likes of Neza and Enlightened, who are both on the active roster for this tournament, were defeated, all taken down by the Monkey King. They weren't able to control his rampage. There was nothing stopping him. As a result, they label him the greatest outlaw in the heavens to date. We never find out what the result of this was. We never find out what inevitably would cause that frame shift. What actually did happen? Now, it's possible that he just defeated everybody that stepped up to him and then it just stopped, but he mellowed out, right? There was a reason they were pursuing him to begin with. Now, as I said, all that was ringing true in my mind was Buddha. When we go back and look at Buddha, very similar things. When he enters the arena, of course, we know he flips sides to fight for humanity because he's compelled by no one's will but his own. Ever since Buddha became enlightened and saw the truth of what the world was, his mindset had completely flipped into not giving a shit about what anybody else thought and doing his own thing. Even when his own best friend, who was the king of a nation, was dying, he couldn't believe that he didn't live a happy life, and that was the key to his enlightenment being achieved. When everybody thought he lived a happy life simply because the kingdom was flourishing and that he was loved by the people, his brother told him, so who does that happy life belong? Because it's certainly not me. He found out that happiness comes from within and it's something that cannot be given. You have to find it your own way. From that moment forward, he went against all the norms, all the restrictions that are posed against him. From that moment, he went and hijacked his brother's funeral, took his casket and let him be free, put him in the river and said, go find your happiness, brother. Go see the world for yourself. No more restrictions on you. All I can think about is that Wukong seems to have the same type of mannerisms and same type of vibe as Buddha. I believe that this is a difference from what he used to be based on Zeus's dialogue. Knowing what we know about the history between Buddha and Wukong, and I'm not the greatest source for that knowledge. I didn't read all of Journey to the West. I don't know the full story, but I do know they had some kind of interaction where Buddha sealed Wukong, and they clearly have some kind of relationship that transpired. Some people in the comments can let us know some more details and facts from what is published. But what I will say is, I 100% believe that Buddha had an influence on the Wukong that we see today. Mellowed him out. perhaps showed him the path to enlightenment. Because I believe that Wukong also achieved nirvana. And maybe that's going to be something where they talk about Wukong's progression if we get his backstory, as we just got Prometheus, where he reached a new level thanks to Buddha. Maybe they didn't have a fight. Although I'd love to see a fight. I know everybody would love to see a fight for scaling purposes, just for hype purposes. But perhaps maybe they just had a conversation. Think about the conversation throughout the fight with Zero. Think about the conversation he had with Zero before even fighting him back in Zero's backstory. Think about Buddha's conversation with Beelzebub back in chapter 88, where Beelzebub wanted Buddha to potentially fight him, or thought he might potentially fight him and hate him for what he did to Zero, implanting Hajin within his body. And Buddha completely goes against those norms as well, saying that the hilt of the misery cleaver was entrusted to him by Zero. He promised him they'd walk the path of light together. He taught me that you can't escape the hatred welling up in your heart, but if I gave my body over to that hatred, I'd be betraying him. That's why I don't hate you. This signifies that Buddha himself is even still undergoing growth as he learned something from Zero. But it also talks about Buddha's nature in which he can talk things out, where it's like he doesn't need to fight. He does things that he wants to do. So if he doesn't have motivation, ample motivation to fight you, I could see a scenario where Wukong, when he was on his rampage that they talked about him rampaging through all these gods, he potentially got to Buddha. And when he got to Buddha, Buddha was like, for what reason are we going to fight? And then they had a conversation, and potentially it led to Wukong achieving maybe his own enlightenment of sorts. And funny enough, tying things into Beelzebub, maybe this is a mirror to what happened with Beelzebub in Hades, where Beelzebub went in there to try to fight Hades and ended up coming out with a whole new lease on life, effectively, and a whole new perspective, with an admiration for somebody that he viewed as a role model going forward. I would love to see that. I would love to see Buddha in the crowd. I've made this very known because he's one of my favorite characters. Got a giant poster of him. I'm sure you guys have seen in some of my videos. And anytime he's on screen, I'm obviously extremely attentive. But I believe that it would be a great conduit to give us more insight into Wukong's character, and if they want to build his character and show us the progression that he's had over the years, I think that they could really do a great job tying it all back into Buddha. Even Zero Fuka, who was so drawn down with hatred, through fighting with Buddha and through hearing what Buddha's sentiments were and hearing the truth, and Buddha allowing him to get that glory once and for all of a fist fight where he was the center of attention, even in defeat, he had reached happiness. He had finally achieved that. Wow, I don't have to be, praised by others. It's within me. I can find happiness. And that narrative works perfectly for a means to why Wukong has mellowed out. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Quick little theory video for the timeline. I do think that Buddha and Wukong have some relation in Record of Ragnarok. Hopefully we get to see it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and stay tuned for all the Record of Ragnarok coverage we're going to be getting very soon now. We're not too far away from the new chapters dropping. So I'll see you guys then. Peace.